So how do you respond when somebody asks you, so what sets you apart from all the other financial advisors? Do you have a succinct response, or do you kind of wing it? I know you don't want to be lumped in with that broad general population of financial advisors. Basically, there's almost 250,000, according to the Department of Labor Statistics, of personal financial advisors in the U.S. working today. You don't want to be grouped in with that. So you need differentiators. You need to be able to have 2 or 3 clear differentiators that you can communicate. Now, what makes a true differentiator? Well, there's basically 3 criteria. First, it needs to be legitimate. It has to be real. You can't be making it up. It has to be true. Second, it has to be of high value to your prospect or the client, obviously. Something they need, something they know that they need, valuable. And third, it has to be quantifiable. You got to be able to prove it. So, to help advisors, we've created a baker's dozen. Now, we know what a baker's dozen is. It means 13. A baker's dozen questions to help you determine your 2 or 3 differentiators. So let me start with these questions and think to yourself. Now, do you or your team specialize in a specific niche? So here, I know a team that specializes in physicians. They know everything about whether it's the insurance, the receivables, payroll. They handle the 401k, they attend conferences, and yes, they have the personal business of the majority of the physicians. That's their niche. Second question, do you specialize working in a particular firm? And by that I mean some big top 100 or Fortune 500 company in the area. Do you know the ins and outs of retirement and benefit options for the executives, let's say at Caterpillar? One of our coaching clients does. And their differentiator is, we know more about Caterpillar than anyone else. That's a differentiator. Do you solve a specific financial challenge, whether it's bringing in outside experts, whether it's, tax-purposed investing, whether it's organizing the paper flow and keeping all the documentations current? Does your team have many credentials? Do you have, a CFP, a CFA on staff? And even some of these credentials that some firms don't allow you to put on your business card, whether it's an MBA, CFP, or you're an attorney, just being able to articulate that, it signifies brains, education, and discipline. Do you have a high-powered Rolodex? In other words, can you open doors for your clients? Whether it's, getting them in line with a top orthopedic surgeon, introducing them to a politician you might know, a journalist. Can you open doors with the movers and shakers? Are your clients the who's who of town? Now, be certain to get permission from a wealthy client before you name drop. And you're not going to name drop often. But more often, what's going to happen is you're going to be personally introduced by a wealthy client in a social setting. And that is name dropping. Do you have a specific geographic footprint? So somebody say, well, gosh, we work with some families here in the Scarsdale area. And we also have some families we work with down in Palm Beach. Now, what's that insinuating? First of all, you're working with wealthy families and you're doing it very personal. It's face to face. So you travel down to Palm Beach to meet with your wealthy clients. Does the size of your team scream exclusive? Now, here's an advisor, and this was a partner on a big, successful team. They had over $1 billion in assets, sitting courtside at a Lakers game with a wealthy prospect. And the prospect simply asked, so how many clients do you have? This was a big team. They had about 12 people on the team. So the advisor thought for a second, said about 400. And right then and there, that advisor knew the romancing of this prospect just stopped. And when I got pulled in and I asked that same advisor, how many of your clients do you personally work with? The response was about 35. You see, one is exclusive and the other is a commodity. Is your service unique? Now, yes, we can all say we have personalized service, but do you have 24/7 access with your clients? Do they have your cell phone number? Do you have a communication agreement in writing that's personalized to each client? Do you have each client review how you're doing with the services you're providing on an annual basis? In other words, they're assessing you face to face. Those are differentiators. Do you have a big time success story? Now, this can be anything related to money. Maybe your team was spearing the fundraiser for a new wing in the hospital. Whatever it might be, but a very clear financial success story. It doesn't have to be that your portfolios consistently beat performance of the markets. How about your cost structure? Is your cost structure unique? Now, if you can't do anything with your cost structure, obviously ignore this. But if you can, and if you're adopting, let's say, the retainer model, this retainer approach to fees, that's unique. Does your team and office stand apart from your competitors? This is your working environment. And I know a lot of advisors and branch offices think that their hands are tied. Well, let's get creative here. Let's go out of the box. I know advisors that turn their very sterile office in a branch into a living room. And I know an advisor telling me personally that once he turned it into a living room, his closing ratio whenever he had a prospect in his office went up dramatically. And finally, are one or more of your team members thought leaders in the industry? Whether they're the Barron's Top 100 or in Wealth Management's Top 100, or there's a credible organization ranking, the top 10 financial planning firms in your state, if you're there, if you have this credibility, you make sure you're communicating it to your clients, to your centers of influence, and your prospects, because they differentiate. See, once you identify, 2 or 3 true differentiators, you must be able to communicate them very succinctly to clients, to prospects, to centers of influence. And we call this the 3 C's of affluent communication. You need to be able to communicate them in a concise manner. It needs to be conversational, and it needs to be done with relaxed confidence, not arrogance. Arrogance pushes people away. Relaxed confidence draws people in. So, being in possession of 2 or 3 differentiators that every team member can articulate is really high-octane fuel for team growth. And then, by the way, you're never going to have to pause when somebody asks you, so what sets you apart? Bye for now.